Today I'm chatting with Lauren Bowen, COO of Robert Slack, about her experience with Follow Up Boss, their tech stack at Robert Slack, and their experience with key technology. Thank you, Lauren, for taking the time to chat about your company, your experiences.
Thank you for having us on.
Yeah, so for those who aren't familiar with Robert Slack, can you share where they're located and a little bit about the company?
Sure. So we are a leads provided brokerage, and up until last year, we were just located in Florida. But last year, we did expand our boundaries into Georgia, Idaho, Colorado, and Texas as well. So a little bit of everywhere, really.
Yeah, so for a little bit about you, how did you get into the real estate industry?
So I actually was not, this was not my original career. I actually did come from a medical background, specifically the operating room. And then about 10 years, I decided I needed to have a little bit of a change in that. So I got my real estate license. And 2 years later, I was not one of the original four with the brokerage, but I was probably definitely in the top 10. And it kind of just progressed from there. I took over a team leader position where we opened our office and then started overseeing the team leaders as a senior team lead director. And then from there went to become the COO and managing our team leaders and the company's lead sources as well.
Okay. So can you share a little bit more about what your role as a COO looks like? What does that mean, managing team leaders and lead sources?
So we do have 18 teams geographically located throughout Florida, but then as well as Colorado, Idaho, Texas, and Texas. So I do oversee all of them, but I also oversee, we have 18 different lead sources within our company. So it kind of went hand in hand that I oversaw both of those because since we are leads provided, the lead flow to each team almost went hand in hand with each of them. So it's a lot, but it's definitely well worth it.
Yeah, yeah, sounds like a busy job, but I'm sure it's very fulfilling.
It
Uh,
is.
and could you share, you mentioned lead sources. Would you be able to sharing some of your most popular lead sources that you use within the company?
So the most popular, the most well-known will be Realtor.com. We do receive about 18 to 20,000 leads from Realtor.com a month. We are their largest purchaser throughout the United States, but we also receive a large amount from Zillow Flex and Zillow Seller Connections as well. So we, between those two, receive about 2,000 from each of those platforms. And then we have a few others like Better Home Light, Rocket Mortgage, Veterans United. So there's a long list of them, and that list seems to be ever growing, but it's keeping it interesting.
Yeah, yeah, with all the new technologies releasing and with AI, that list will be ever growing for not only you, but for everybody for sure. And so on that topic of lead sources, could you share what your tech stack looks like for managing your leads and the business?
So we could not manage our lead sources without Follow Up Boss. So as our CRM, that has been our it's actually been with us since day one. Since I think we're probably one of the first for Follow Up Boss as well. So we have utilized it since the beginning. We use Brokerment for our contract management, but then a couple other things that we utilize are YLOPO. We do use them for their re-engagement, and we use Raya as well. And then starting, I want to say within the past couple of years, we've been increasing what our tech looks like in our database. So we do utilize Real Scout Fellow, and then we obviously utilize key technology as well for our action plans and everything. But Osiris to kind of keep everything from falling through the cracks. But our technology list is ever expanding as well.
Yeah, need to increase that efficiency, especially with what was it, 20,000 leads a month. You definitely need lots of
Yep,
systems and workflows in place to
absolutely.
manage all of those. So how long have you been using Follow Boss? You said since day one. So what was day one?
So we'll be 10 years old this year, but we actually used them before we opened Robert Slack. So Robert and I were at a different brokerage and we were using them then. So it's been a journey for our brokerage, but it's been a journey for Follow Up Boss as well. So we've probably been with them 11, maybe 12 years.
Ah, were you with the original Follow Up Boss, like Fub 1.0?
I was. I kind of miss
Oh,
it in
wow.
some ways. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
There are aspects of it I miss, but we were with the original Follow Up Boss and everything. So, yep, it's been quite a ride. So we have a massive database. So we are actually on our own server with Follow Up Boss, so they can help us house that.
You have to have your own server because of how many leads you have.
Yeah, in Florida we have 1.4 million, so they
Oh,
have
yeah.
us up on our own server for that reason.
Well, that makes sense. Wow. You probably are the only customers who say that they need their own server.
I
That's
think so.
Yeah, I think I joined Follow Up Boss at the transition. I started using it like 2015, 2016. So it
Oh,
was
okay.
right as they were releasing FUB 2.0.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the FUB 1.0 was fun to use. So on the topic of Follow Up Boss, then how did you may not know the answer to this question, but do you know how the team at Robert Slack heard about key technology?
So the Follow Up Boss Success community is how we learned about it. So we are pretty active in there. So we saw some people started chiming in and talking about it, and so we decided to reach out and see if we could learn more on it.
Yeah. So after you heard about key technology, what made your team ultimately decide to hire us and work with us?
So we just talked. We have a massive database, and one of the things up until a couple years ago we were not very good with was engaging our database. And we have already paid for all those leads. We've already paid the referral fee on those leads, but we had to keep them engaged. So one of the areas that we knew we were lacking in was automations, tag organization, custom action plans, and it seemed specifically what you guys did. So it was kind of a missing link for us.
Hmm. So what sorts of services did we provide Robert Slack and Follow Boss?
Exactly that, exactly what we were looking for. We utilized the action plans and exactly the automation tag organization. Our agents get very tag happy, it seems. So that one was a big one for us. I want to say we had something like 62,000 tags in our follow up boss when we brought you in, and we had to get those under control. And then the custom action plans, and specifically, we found the 11-year post close action plan, one of them our most beneficial.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and that's always a constant battle, uphill battle with tags. I know once you clean it up, especially if you have auto tagging on, it just grows exponentially for forever, for sure.
It does.
Yeah. So how long has your company been using the key technology setup?
I want to say we're almost to our 2-year mark, I believe. So I think we started the automations back in March of 2022, and then I think we've kind of been growing it since then.
Yeah, and so in terms of adoption, you mentioned you're not only in Florida now, but you're in all of these other states. Do the other teams, the other branches use the key technology setup as well?
They do. We took what we learned in Florida and implemented across all the states.
Okay. So what has been the adoption like with agents and the results you have been seeing so far?
It's been really good. I mean, obviously, we always talk about understanding the DNA of the leads, but we also wanted them to understand DNA of the action plans and what triggered what. So we did put together some training on if they saw this triggered, that's what triggered it. But it's been very positive. We saw re-engagement at the right time. We saw the action plan start triggering based off of lead behavior. Like I mentioned, the 11-year post-close action plan, so we can stay relevant after closing because those sellers do eventually become buyers as well. So we wanted to stay in front of them without kind of being too salesy, and that one really helped us a lot with that. But then also asking for the Google review. So those all were very important and have worked great in our favor.
That's good to hear. Yeah, and you mentioned these other tools you use outside of Follow Up Boss, like Real Scout and Fellow, and we've been fortunate to have good relationships with all of those vendors, like Ylopo, to create those extra automations, like you mentioned for behavior. Because as your tech stack's growing, so is ours. All of
Which
the
is
tools out
great,
there.
and that's so important as well. So I mean, it's almost like we've been kind of growing them in tandem. So which is a key part of this.
Yeah, yeah. So in that, when you say like growing in tandem, we've been working almost 2 years now. What has our support been like for Robert Slack since we initially worked with you almost 2 years ago?
So responsive, always have been responsive. I can't even say it started not responsive and then became responsive. It's always been there. So, and your team's always been great at suggesting new content as we need it and as it becomes available. So the support has been next to none. So it's been fabulous all along the way.
That's so good to hear. Well, last question before I let you go. If someone were on the fence about working with us, what would you tell them?
Absolutely go for it. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. Action plans actually can become tedious and hard. They are time consuming. So go with a proven system that works.
Very good. Well, thank you, Lauren. I appreciate your time, and I'm sure a lot of people will find this video helpful.
Thank you.